what even is my life? My house is basically just turning into a Miata hospital at this point. Does anyone have any broken Miatas they just want to drop off here? So all the cars are broken, and today I'm going to talk about it. Let's get started. So I want to talk about the green car first. I didn't find anything new wrong with this, but in the last video I did make a mistake while doing the Leakdown test, and I would hate for someone to think they need to rebuild their engine via making the same mistake that I did. So cylinder number 2 and number 4 in the previous Leakdown test showed nearly 100% leakage, and that's because I did the test wrong. So not only does the piston have to be at top dead center to perform the test in that cylinder, but it also has to be in the compression stroke at top dead center. If it's top dead center on the exhaust stroke, the exhaust valve is still open and that cylinder will show 100% leakage. So I'll put on screen now the actual cylinder leakage values for this engine. So obviously the head does still need to be rebuilt. I mean, cylinder number 2, the bad one, is at 70% leakage, where 15% or so is healthy. But I just want to make that very clear. Make sure your cylinder is on the right stroke when you do your test. Another weird thing with that car, I did another compression test on it just for the heck of it, and last time cylinder number 2 showed 30 psi, and now it's like 130 psi. So it's still a little bit low, but drastically different. I was using the same tool. It's possible that a valve is occasionally sticking open or something like that, but at any rate, the head needs to come off no matter what. So what I decided is I am gonna get the NB head rebuilt completely stock and put it back together. It's kind of the quickest way just to get the car fixed, and I'll go and dyno test it at that time with the current bolt-ons. I'm still really interested to see how much that car can make with just basic bolt-ons in a tune, and I think that'll be really valuable information. Then I'll have a little bit of extra time to build the ported head on the side. Definitely gonna do a set of big cams, which I already have done. They're on the way here. Custom set of big Mama Jama cams. Now, after I build this head, I'm actually not going to put it on the bottom end in the NB. I'm gonna put it on the bottom end that I got here. Now, this is a VVT engine, and it's got about half a point extra compression. These bottom ends are 10-1, where the NB is 9.5-1, and I'm gonna go ahead and leave the factory bottom end and just kind of build like a semi-budget NA Screamer. I don't know, we'll just have to see where it goes. So the history on this engine is I got it from Ricky at Throttle. I actually got the engine for free with the purchase of one 6-speed transmission. And the reason I got it for free is because the car that this was in fell off a trailer. It landed on the crank nose, and then the engine would not start after that. So it is possible that the bottom end is toast. You know, if the crankshaft is bent, that's basically RIP. Or it could just be because the damper got damaged and the crank signal stopped picking up, or it could be a variety of issues. So I gotta kind of check that thing out, but the plan is to build this engine naturally aspirated and then swap it into the NB. I had the bright idea that I need to drive the red car because I haven't been driving it very often, and I had to send one of the axles back for warranty back to Driveshaft Shop, which those guys totally took care of me. Excellent customer service from Driveshaft Shop. Got the axle back, got the car put back together, needed another wheel bearing, so I did another wheel bearing, and I'm like, okay, I need to drive this thing like 50 miles a day to make sure if anything is gonna break on it, if anything's gonna fall apart, it needs to do it now, because the NB is gonna be down for, I don't know, 1 to 2 weeks while I get the head rebuilt. I'm gonna film the head gasket, how to do a head gasket on that car as well at the same time, so you guys will get that video. That's gonna take some time, so the red car has to be reliable. So I've been just kinda, you know, cruising it, putting some miles on it the way I normally drive it. And I get it back in the driveway, and it's making a familiar jingling sound. And I pretty much already knew what it was because it's happened once before. And the trigger wheel on my ATI damper came loose. It's got 4 Allen bolts that hold it on. This came loose. The ATI super damper, anyone who has this knows it's a pain to pull off. But luckily, you can get a tiny Allen wrench back behind there and get everything tightened down. So that's all good. Oh yeah, and my front main seal is totally exploded. There's oil everywhere. So that sucks. I was able to get that tight. I had to take the plastics all off to get that. And I just kind of glanced over at the cam and I noticed it really looks like there's no gap. There's no lash underneath that cam. And as you guys remember, I already re-shimmed this head one time. And so I busted out my feeler gauges and I was like, I better check the lash since I already have the valve cover off. It's supposed to look something like this. You can see there is a tiny gap in between the cam and the lifter. Now the exhaust side is supposed to have a bigger gap, but that makes it so you guys can see it easily on the camera there. As you can see, not even the tiniest little thinnest feeler gauges will go into some of these. Not good, not good, not good, not good, not good. Here, can I please just cry? Here are my lash results. You can see over on the intake cam that 5 of the valves have 0 lash. And typically what that means is either the intake valves are eating themselves or the valve seats are getting eaten up, or a combination of the two. So the only way you can really check that without removing the cylinder head is to take the intake manifold off. So that's what I did. So this is what a normal valve is supposed to look like. This one's even a used valve. It's been run before. The edge of it, it's basically a flat plane. It's like a wedge shape, I guess you'd call it, okay? Now if I come in here to this motor, you can actually look inside the intake ports, and it's actually really hard to see on video, but I'm gonna put a photo on screen now that'll be super clear. And that just completely confirms the theory that the valves are being eaten away. So here's your valve, and this side is supposed to be just like a flat plane, but on the valves in my engine, they look like that. Really, that engine right now, I shouldn't even start it. That's really unfortunate, because that basically means that the engine in the red car has now taken priority, because I can still drive the green car, it's fine, but man, that sucks. So the red car needs front main seal and for the head to be rebuilt basically. Why did that happen? Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I do have aftermarket valves in that head by a company called SI Valves. They're stainless steel valves, good quality product. It's got stock valve seats in it, and it has the Volvo valve springs, which are stiffer than stock. But typically the reason that valves start eating themselves like that, assuming the lash is correct, is due to valve float. And most people associate valve float only with revving very high, but I don't rev that engine very high. I usually leave the limiter at 7,700, which is a little bit above stock. But when you combine that with extra boost pressure, you now have this higher pressure stream of air going through those intake valves, and the intake valves are attempting to close and pinch it off, and it's more difficult when you're running more boost. So I think a combination of a little bit extra RPM and a medium amount of boost probably caused some valve float that the Volvo valve springs just couldn't keep up with. So I am going to rebuild that head basically exactly how it is, just with upgraded valve springs. I'll talk about the actual rebuild itself. It'll get its own video so I can cover some of the details and, you know, show you some detailed shots when I actually get it out of the car and pull it apart. I thought about doing big cams and doing extra porting and all that, but the head and cam combo on the red car just works so well, and it's so perfect. There's no need for me to put a bunch of extra money into it, trying to get more out of it when I really think it's enough. So if you're building a Miata and you think you're gonna be that 350, 400 plus horsepower range, I would definitely invest in some good stiff valve springs. I know it's counterintuitive. It sounds like, oh, a stiff valve spring is gonna close the valve harder and cause it to wear faster. But you need to make sure that the valve actually is closing when it's supposed to. If the springs are too soft, the valve will try to close and it can actually bounce. And that's what causes excessive wear on the intake valve. So that engine has about 13,000 miles on it, and the intake valves are toast. So just need to get the head rebuilt, and I'll be able to inspect some stuff when I take that head off. Now, why was it only the intake valves and not the exhaust valves? My theories, I have 2 of them. Number 1 is the intake air is going against the valve spring, so it's actually trying to push that valve open, which can cause it to float and cause that damage. And the intake and the exhaust have the same stiffness of springs on them, and the intake valve is heavier. So if anything in the valve train is heavier, it's gonna be more prone to floating. So maybe it's a combination of both those things. But at any rate, I'm gonna get a new set of intake valves and exhaust valves just to be safe. I'll get a regular old valve job on that head, and then we'll be good to go again. Does anyone, like, if I bring like 4 cylinder heads to a machine shop, can I get like a discount or something? This is crazy. So anyways, obviously I have some videos to make now. I hope you guys are ready for some content about cylinder heads. It should be fun, but whether you like it or not, you're gonna get it, because this is just my car's braking, and I'm gonna film it and show you how I fix them. So if you guys do have any questions about your own engine builds that I might be able to help with, drop them down in the comment section below. Let me know if you have any suggestions or what you would do in my situation, and I'll see you guys very soon to check out some broken parts. Peace out.